Caligula is infamous for his cruelty, but what drove him to become one of the most feared emperors in Rome? Behind the monster, a child once lived just like you. Born into a world of power and privilege, Caligula's early life was a far cry from the brutal reign that would one day define him. In the palace, Caligula grew up surrounded by opulence and excess, but beneath the surface, he struggled with feelings of isolation and insecurity. His father, Germanicus, was a beloved military leader, and his mother, Agrippina, was a member of the imperial family. Yet, despite their high status, Caligula's childhood was marked by an eerie sense of detachment. As a young boy, Caligula was fascinated by the world beyond the palace walls. He loved to listen to stories of adventure and bravery, and he was particularly drawn to the tales of his famous uncle, the Emperor Tiberius. But amidst the grandeur and luxury, Caligula's relationships with his family members were complicated and often fraught. His father's sudden death when Caligula was just a toddler left a gaping hole in his life, and his mother's subsequent marriage to the Emperor Claudius only added to his sense of insecurity. As he grew older, Caligula's struggles intensified, and he began to feel like an outsider in his own family. One of the few people who seemed to understand Caligula was his grandmother, Antonia Minor. She was a kind and gentle soul who took a particular interest in her grandson's well-being. Despite her own difficult circumstances, Antonia Minor instilled in Caligula a sense of compassion and empathy that would serve him well in the years to come. But even with Antonia Minor's love and support, Caligula's life was about to take a dramatic turn. As he entered his teenage years, he began to feel increasingly isolated and alone. His relationships with his family members continued to deteriorate, and he started to withdraw into himself. It was during this tumultuous period that Caligula's life took a dark and irreversible turn. A series of tragic events would soon unfold, leaving an indelible mark on the young man's psyche and setting him on a path from which there would be no return. Imagine being a child who loses trust in everyone around you. You begin to see the world as a hostile and unforgiving place, where no one can be relied upon to provide comfort or support. This was the reality that Caligula faced as he navigated the treacherous waters of imperial politics. As he grew older, Caligula's emotions became increasingly volatile, and his behavior began to spiral out of control. He lashed out at those around him, striking back at the perceived injustices of his childhood. His words and actions became more and more erratic, and his relationships with others continued to deteriorate. It was as if Caligula had lost sight of everything that was once good and pure in him. He had become a shadow of his former self, a mere husk of the bright and curious child he once was. And yet, even in the midst of such chaos and destruction, there were moments of fleeting beauty and compassion that hinted at a deeper humanity. One such moment came when Caligula was still a young man, just beginning to assert his dominance over Rome. He was faced with a difficult decision: to execute a group of senators who had been accused of treason or to show mercy and spare their lives. In the end, Caligula chose the latter, surprising many by his willingness to show compassion and forgiveness. This moment of kindness and generosity was a rare glimmer of hope in an otherwise dark and troubled life. It suggested that, even in the depths of his despair, Caligula was still capable of feeling and acting with empathy and compassion. But it was a fleeting moment, and one that would soon be lost in the maelstrom of his increasingly erratic behavior. As Caligula's reign continued, his behavior became more and more erratic. He lashed out at his enemies, often with brutal and merciless force. His relationships with his family members continued to deteriorate, and his relationships with others grew increasingly strained. Despite his many flaws and mistakes, Caligula was a complex and multifaceted individual. He was a product of his environment, shaped by the circumstances of his birth and the choices of those around him. And yet, he was also a reminder that even the most flawed and broken individuals are capable of change and redemption. In the end, Caligula's legacy was one of chaos and destruction, a testament to the devastating consequences of unchecked power and ambition. But it was also a reminder that no matter how far we may fall, there is always the possibility for forgiveness and redemption. Caligula's story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of kindness and compassion. It reminds us that no matter how flawed and broken we may be, we are always capable of change and growth. And so, as we reflect on Caligula's life and legacy, let us remember that no baby is born cruel. But without love, safety, and kindness, even a child can grow into someone history fears. Caligula is remembered as one of the cruelest emperors of Rome. But he wasn't always a monster. He was once a child, just like you. Behind the fearsome reputation, a vulnerable and innocent person once lived. Born into a world of power and privilege, Caligula's early life seemed idyllic, but it was far from it. The palace, where he should have felt safe and loved, became a place of fear and uncertainty. As Caligula grew older, he began to notice the dark underbelly of his family's world. His parents, Germanicus and Agrippina, were powerful figures in Rome, but their grip on power was tight, and their relationships with others were often strained. They were known for their ruthlessness, and Caligula witnessed firsthand the consequences of their actions. The palace, once a place of laughter and joy, became a breeding ground for fear, anxiety, and mistrust. The first significant event that hurt Caligula deeply was the death of his father, Germanicus. He was just a young boy when his father passed away under mysterious circumstances. The event left Caligula feeling lost and abandoned, and it marked the beginning of his growing distrust of those around him. He began to wonder if his family's relationships were genuine or if they were just pawns in a game of power and politics. Imagine being a child who loses trust in everyone around you. It's like being in a classroom where you're constantly on guard, wondering who your true friends are and who might be plotting against you. Caligula's experience was similar, and it had a profound impact on his life. He became increasingly paranoid, always looking over his shoulder, waiting for the next betrayal. As Caligula grew older, his anger and fear only intensified. He began to lash out at those around him, using his power to control and manipulate others. He became increasingly isolated, pushing away friends and family who tried to reach out to him. The palace, once a symbol of his family's power and status, became a prison, a constant reminder of his vulnerability and fear. The turning point in Caligula's life came when he was appointed emperor by the Roman Senate. He was just 24 years old, and the weight of power was crushing. He felt like a puppet on strings, forced to make decisions that would determine the fate of Rome. His anger and fear boiled over, and he began to use his power to punish those he saw as enemies. The once innocent child had become a ruthless leader, feared by his people and respected by none. The legacy of Caligula's reign is one of fear and terror. He ruled with an iron fist, using his power to crush his enemies and silence his critics. History remembers him as a cruel and heartless leader, but what drove him to become that person? The answer lies in his childhood, where he was forced to grow up too quickly, surrounded by fear and uncertainty. No baby is born cruel, but without love, safety, and kindness, even a child can grow into someone history fears. Caligula's story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of neglecting our children, about the importance of providing them with love, guidance, and support. It's a reminder that we all have the power to shape the world around us, to create a brighter future for ourselves and those we love. As we reflect on Caligula's story, we're left with a question: what can we learn from his experiences? We can learn that kindness matters, that showing compassion and empathy can make a difference in someone's life. We can learn that our actions have consequences, that we have the power to create a world of love and respect or a world of fear and cruelty. The choice is ours. We can choose to be like Caligula, using our power to control and manipulate others, or we can choose to be like the child he once was, innocent and full of hope. The decision is ours, and it starts with the way we treat each other, with the way we show kindness and compassion in our daily lives. Caligula is remembered as one of the cruelest emperors of Rome, a name that sends shivers down the spine of anyone who's studied history. But he wasn't always a monster, a creature driven by a thirst for blood and power. He was once a child, just like you, with hopes and dreams that seemed within reach. Born into a world of wealth and privilege, Caligula's early life seemed idyllic. He was the son of Germanicus, a respected military leader, and Agrippina the Elder, a member of the imperial family. His grandparents, Tiberius and Livia, ruled Rome with an iron fist, but Caligula's childhood was far from tyrannical. In fact, it was marked by innocence and curiosity, just like any other child's. As he grew older, however, Caligula began to see the dark side of his family's power. He witnessed the fear and intimidation that came with living in a palace, where the line between love and loyalty was constantly blurred. His parents, particularly his mother Agrippina, seemed more concerned with protecting their own interests than with nurturing their son's well-being. Caligula began to feel isolated, a feeling that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Imagine being a child who loses trust in everyone around you. You start to wonder if anyone truly cares about your feelings or needs. That's what happened to Caligula. He grew up in a world where fear and betrayal were the norm, and he began to respond in the only way he knew how, with anger. As Caligula grew older, instead of healing, he used anger to control others. He started with those closest to him, his family members and friends. He manipulated and coerced them into doing his bidding, often using guilt and intimidation to get what he wanted. This behavior became a cycle, a never-ending loop of hurt and anger that made it harder for Caligula to break free. One of the earliest warning signs of Caligula's future cruelty came when he was just a teenager. He had a falling out with his mother, Agrippina, over a trivial matter. The incident left Caligula feeling humiliated and angry, emotions that would simmer just below the surface for years to come. This was the first time Caligula had used his anger to lash out at someone he loved, a behavior that would become all too familiar as he grew older. As Caligula's anger intensified, he began to see the world as a place where only the strongest survived. He believed that by using his emotions to control others, he could rise to the top of the imperial hierarchy. And so, he set out to make a name for himself, using every trick in the book to get ahead. But at what cost? The consequences of Caligula's actions were far-reaching, affecting not just those closest to him, but also the people of Rome. His reign was marked by extravagance, violence, and paranoia, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. Caligula's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked anger and the importance of kindness and compassion. It reminds us that no one is born evil, but that the choices we make can lead us down a dark path. As we reflect on the life of this infamous emperor, let us consider the lessons we can learn from his mistakes. Caligula is remembered as one of the cruelest emperors of Rome, a name that sends shivers down the spine of anyone who's studied history. But what made him tick? What drove a man to become so notorious for his brutality? To understand Caligula's rise to power, we need to look back at his early life and the events that shaped him into the monster he became. Born into a world of power and privilege, Caligula's childhood was far from idyllic. His father, Germanicus, was a respected general who had won the hearts of the Roman people. But when Germanicus died under mysterious circumstances, Caligula's life took a drastic turn. His uncle, Tiberius, took control of Rome and began to manipulate Caligula's life for his own gain. As a child, Caligula was constantly torn between his desire for love and acceptance and the cruelty of those around him. His mother, Agrippina, tried to shield him from the harsh realities of the palace, but even she couldn't protect him from the hurtful comments and actions of those who sought to destroy him. Caligula was constantly reminded that he was not loved, not accepted, and not worthy of trust. This sense of rejection and isolation fueled Caligula's anger and desire for control. As he grew older, he began to realize that he had a choice: to let his pain define him or to use it to fuel his ambition. And so, Caligula started to build a network of loyal followers who feared and obeyed him above all else. But what happened to the innocent child who had once laughed and played in the palace gardens? Where did that spark of kindness and compassion go? The answer lies in the pattern of cruelty and violence that developed under Caligula's rule. His actions became increasingly erratic and brutal, and the people of Rome began to live in fear of their emperor. The consequences of Caligula's actions were devastating. He used fear to control the Senate, ordering the executions of anyone who dared to oppose him. He even took the lives of his own family members, including his sister and niece, to eliminate potential threats to his power. And yet, despite the chaos and destruction he caused, Caligula remained convinced that he was above the law and that he was the only one who truly understood what was best for Rome. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, Caligula's descent into madness accelerated. His behavior became more erratic, and his actions more brutal. The people of Rome lived in constant fear of their emperor, wondering when he would strike next. And then one day it happened. Caligula was assassinated, and his reign of terror came to an end. But the question remains, what can we learn from Caligula's story? Can we see in him a reflection of our own struggles and pain? Can we understand that even the most seemingly evil person was once a vulnerable child, just like us? And what can we do to prevent the next Caligula from rising to power? Caligula's actions left an indelible mark on Rome and its people. His reign was a testament to the devastating consequences of unchecked power and the erosion of compassion. As we reflect on his story, it's essential to understand the lasting impact of his cruelty and the lessons that can be learned from it. One of the most striking aspects of Caligula's legacy is the way it continues to haunt Rome's people. His brutal methods of governance created a culture of fear where citizens lived in constant terror of being targeted next. The streets were filled with whispers of his atrocities, and the once proud Roman Empire began to crumble under the weight of his tyranny. As we look back, it's clear that Caligula's actions were a catalyst for the downfall of Rome's greatness. But what can we learn from this cautionary tale? The story of Caligula serves as a poignant reminder that kindness and love are essential for breaking the cycle of hurt and anger. When we choose to empathize with others, to listen to their struggles, and to show compassion, we create a ripple effect of kindness that can transform lives. In a world where fear and mistrust often dominate, it's more crucial than ever to prioritize love, understanding, and empathy. As we reflect on Caligula's story, we're forced to confront the darker aspects of human nature. We see that even the most seemingly innocent individuals can be shaped by pain and trauma, leading them down a path of destruction. However, this also means that we have the power to choose a different path. We can choose to respond to hurt with kindness, to forgive, and to show compassion. The story of Caligula serves as a powerful reminder that kindness is not a weakness, but a strength. When we choose to prioritize love and empathy, we create a safer, more compassionate world for everyone. So, what can we learn from Caligula's mistakes? We can learn that kindness and love are the keys to breaking the cycle of hurt and anger. We can learn that by choosing to show compassion, we can create a brighter future for ourselves and those around us.